Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are so honored and so very happy that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, Audible, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have three fascinating guests to share with you today. A little bit later on, we are going to be meeting Satane Abaza. She'll be here to celebrate the Ramadan drummer. But first, we'll be speaking to two teenage entrepreneurs who want to encourage other teens to become entrepreneurs. Our guests will be Jason Liaw and Finley Scurlock. Hey, are you ready to ignite a passion for reading in your students? Introducing bookandauthor.com, your gateway to literacy connections. With bookandauthor.com, connecting your school with talented authors of captivating kids' books has never been easier. Simply visit our user-friendly website and explore our extensive database of authors. Filter your search based on budget, genre, and availability. Discover the perfect match for your school and your students. But that's not all. With bookandauthor.com, you have the power to request a proposal. Let vetted authors come to you with their tailored ideas, ensuring an unforgettable literacy experience for your students. Don't wait any longer to inspire young minds through the magic of books. Visit bookandauthor.com today and open the door to a world of literacy connections. Bookandauthor.com, where literacy comes to life. We're going to have a great time. I have a feeling I'm going to learn a whole lot because I've already learned a bunch in the few minutes that I've been talking to our guests before we started recording. Joining us from the great state of Maryland are the authors of the book Down to Business. First, let me introduce to you Finley Scurlock. Hey, Finley, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Joining him is his co-author, Jason Liaw. Jason,
hey,
how's
everyone.
it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Now, Jason, you are the elder of this duo here. So can you tell us a little bit about Down to Business? What is it all about?
Of course. So Down to Business, we started this book around the pandemic, the time of the pandemic, and when Zoom was just becoming familiar with everybody. We've always been pretty interested in business and thought, how can we kind of take these passions to the next level? And we wanted to seek out some of the advice from the best people out there, the people that have done it already, right? Like we grew up with people watching them like Jeff Bezos and Oprah Winfrey, these amazing entrepreneurs, and wanted to follow in their footsteps. So we took to interviewing different CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business leaders of all generations and, of course, industries to kind of collect the best advice possible for the next generation of leaders.
Okay, now, Finley, Jason mentioned Oprah and Jeff Bezos. Were they part of the entrepreneurs that you had to got a chance to interview?
We wish. They were definitely, we reached out to a wide variety of people, really, and some people responded, some people didn't, but we were not able to get someone quite to that level of fame, but we did. We interviewed a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and CEOs, including from quite a few recognizable brands, such as the president of the Hallmark Channel or the CEO of Mercado Libre, for instance, which is the Amazon's main competitor in Latin America. And we interviewed the founder of Hydro Flask water bottles and the founder of the Shazam music app, to just name a few of the people we talked to. But really, it was quite the collection. We interviewed over 65 people, and then eventually 51 made it into the final book. So it was, like I said, or like Jason said, people from all different industries, and we tried to have as much diversity and as much diversity of people's stories, people's business models, and people, and how people have gone about learning entrepreneurship and becoming an entrepreneur in our book.
Okay, so Jason, I got to ask you, I don't know if I mentioned, you're a junior in high school. Finley is a sophomore in high school. Part of being an entrepreneur is having the guts, the courage, the chutzpah, to use an old word, to go out and to try something, to go outside of your comfort zone, and to go where no one expects a high school kid to go. First, where did you both get the chutzpah to think, yeah, we're going to get the CEO of Latin American Amazon on to interview for our book? Where did how did you do that? There are grown-ups who wouldn't even think about doing that.
I would say we were a little bit naive, right? We had that kind of youthfulness in us. And in the beginning, right, we both started businesses at an incredibly young age. I know Finn used to sell soaps at different business sales, and I developed websites for local organizations and businesses, things that people weren't really looking for. And I think that kind of that kind of young perspective that we had to say, hey, there's something missing. And instead of thinking, oh, there's probably another idea or product out there, we just said, why don't we try to fix it, right? Why don't we try to do something about it? And I think that kind of carried over from our own individual businesses into this collective project, which was Down to Business.
I love that. And, I think being naive can be a great superpower, because, there are so many grown-ups who don't do things because they, in the back of their head, they're like going, oh, I ain't supposed to do that. That ain't something I'm supposed to do or even asked to do. And to, just to be young and say, what the heck? Why not? It's great. And I think it's a skill that everybody should try to develop because it can open up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities. Finley, were you, I can't wait to get down to business, to talk about Down to Business, but I'm wondering, were you two friends in school anyways, or did you come together to get to know each other and become friendly because of your shared interest in business?
So we're neighbors, actually, and we've known each other for, I believe, 8 years now, 8 or 9 years. So we've been good friends since before starting the book.
Awesome. So that's like half your life.
Yeah.
So Finley, one of the things I learned earlier is that there's something called a Gen Alpha. You were talking about, you wrote this book for Gen Zers and Gen Alpha-ers. I don't know if I said that right. But for everybody else out there who's almost 100 like me, tell everybody who these two generations represent.
Sure. So Generation Z is currently, I'm not sure if it has shifted with 2024, but it's roughly speaking 12 to 24. And Generation Alpha is the next Generation Alpha after that. So people roughly 1 to 12 or so. And we are, in terms of Generation Z, one of the most entrepreneurial generations to date. That was actually one of the things that we learned when we were first doing our initial research for writing this book, was that upwards of 50% of Generation Z wants to be their own boss. And that's even more true of Generation Alpha, where figures can go as high as even 75%. And that really goes to show that I think that our generation is trying to forge our own path in a world where we have big problems to solve. For one thing, between climate change, social justice, political polarization, we have so many things at our feet and so many problems to solve in this world, and we at least believe that entrepreneurship is the best way to solve them. So our our generation, I think, is passionate about making change in the world through business, and related to that also are very focused on social causes, on authenticity, and on diversity as key values.
As somebody who's been his own boss for 35 or so years, I can certainly relate to the desire to be your own boss. I think my bigger desire is not wanting to have a boss. I think that was the main push for me. Finding out that my life is a lot better when I don't have a boss. And theirs are too. What is it, Jason, do you think that is driving this desire by younger people to become entrepreneurs?
First of all, we're surrounded by kind of technology that's always evolving, adapting, and changing. And I think that is really the spur for a lot of this movement. When you look at, say, the amount of technology that has been brought to, just our fingertips, right? Like all the access to information. And it's just like, what can we do with this information that's different from what's already out there? So I think that is the first thing. And the second thing, I guess, is that we're seeing a lot of it already being done, right? Like we're seeing a lot of these changes being made, and we want to be a part of it, right? We're not trying to just sit back and take a backseat approach and say, we're not old enough yet to do any of this, so we're going to wait until it's our turn. That's kind of I believe the biggest motivator, is that we don't want to sit behind and kind of wait for our turn. It's like, we want to start right now.
Yeah. One of the things, go ahead, Finley.
I would add to that in many ways we have to, that I think that that starting early has been not only something that's valuable, although it is, in our experience writing the book, we found that every person we interviewed who started early was glad that they did, and everyone who started late had wished they started earlier. But that said, I think that it's also a case of simply, it's to be an entrepreneur, it's something that we need to develop these skills when we are learning during our education, because we've always thought that entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial mindset is a fundamental part of our education.
Now, I would say that I believe that entrepreneurship should be a part of everyone's education. Is it happening? Are kids learning how to be entrepreneurs? Because I'm hearing young people all the time saying, no one even taught me how to balance a checkbook or do my taxes. I mean, I am totally illiterate when it comes to finances. If those guys are, not financially literate, I can't believe that they're also, that they're learning about entrepreneurship.
It's not being taught. That's, I think, the point, is that it should be taught, and that's what we wanted to do with this book, is make that information more widely accessible. That obviously, I think in the digital age that we live in, it's not impossible to find resources related to entrepreneurship. There are programs out there who are doing a great job at introducing people to entrepreneurship, but I don't think they're doing it at a wide enough scale that the average person, even if it's not impossible to find, it's I think the entrepreneurial education and financial education and leadership education as a whole is severely lacking, and that is something that we kind of wanted to correct with this book, and also to put more than just giving us the information and giving our generation the information, also presenting it in a form that would be interesting and meaningful to our generation as well. And that was, I think, something that we targeted. We made sure that it was we put the interviews in digestible chunks with key takeaways at the end for easy access, because of course we've grown up in a world where we, if anything, can't help but have short attention spans, because we've grown up in an age where things are expected immediately. We actually interviewed someone who was dealing with that exact topic, who is competing with Amazon and helping other companies to deliver products quickly and match Amazon's one-day delivery. And I think that it goes to show that we had to, I think, adapt to a suitable way of presenting the information to our generation, because I think that that's another issue, is that what information is out there is often presented in a dry or uninteresting manner. It feels like school, and that's not, to the average kid, that's not a compliment. And that, unfortunately, there is a large extent, I think, to which entrepreneurship is not only, it's not only not taught, but when it is taught, it's mistaught. And I think that that's one of the things that our book sought to correct, that to have everyone reading the book be able to find it easily accessible, to find someone within the book who they can look up to as a mentor, and really just to present present the knowledge so that our generation can learn what we need to know for if we want to start a business, but also just for life in general, because that's another thing that we found, that the entrepreneurial mindset is currently to many employers considered the number one thing they look for in an employee, and it's applicable in so many other different jobs as well. For instance, we found that many of the skills we were learning related to entrepreneurship were just as applicable to writing a book.
Jason, I want to start talking about some of the people that you interviewed, but before I do, you mentioned, I think you used the word permission. One of the things that really helped me in my entrepreneurial journey is learning that it's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Is that something if you found, or is that something that the people that you spoke to mentioned?
First of all, I absolutely love that quote. I've recently just been binging this TV series. I'm sorry if this is a little off topic, but it's called Suits, and the main character had that exact saying. And what I loved about that, as the first time I heard it, and right now when you just said it, I was immediately struck by it, because it's like, who are we going to ask permission from, right? Like, the people that we're asking permission from are the people that maybe aren't doing it as well in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're going to go out there and do it, even if we fail, right, the only person we're asking forgiveness from is really ourselves, right? How we can do better, how we can, improve the next time. So it really depends on the way that you look at it, but I absolutely love that kind of take on it, and how you kind of continue to take those risks, take those opportunities, and eventually, you won't have to ask for forgiveness at all. Mm-hmm. You won't have to ask for either. So.
Well, I am a big fan of Harvey, but I'm old enough to have seen it during its first run, Suits. So, tell me, Jason, who was the CEO that you spoke to that you found the most interesting, and what did you learn from that CEO?
The CEO was her name is Mei Chu, and she's a local Chinese American entrepreneur. What I found most interesting about her was that she started at different trade shows and kind of small local business sales, right? And she made candles out of Campbell's soup cans, right? If you can imagine eating a bowl of chicken noodle soup, saving the soup can, and then making a candle out of it, it doesn't really sound like something that the normal person can do. And she took a lot of inspiration from the things around her, from going to Bloomingdale's to, going to some of these trade shows beforehand and seeing what customers liked. And I thought that perspective of bringing something that was just, like an idea, right, and actually scaling it, right? Because she talked to us a lot about the process of getting factories, how she had to bring it to a lot of the wholesalers and everything like that. So taking this small product and passion and making it into a multi-million-dollar company, in which is now owned by Yankee Candle, the one we all know, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the progression I thought was really inspiring. It was of course, what we think of, invent a product and bring it to the masses, but it's different, right? It's difficult. It's more difficult, I should say. It's more difficult than we think. Mm-hmm. So I thought the way that she kind of planned it out and executed it was extremely elegant and inspiring.
Yeah. Same question for you, Finley. Who did you find most fascinating in this journey?
So I'm not sure if I can quite choose a single person like Jason. It's always been a difficult question for me, because each of the people we interviewed feel like trusted mentors who we learned so much from. So choosing a single one is always difficult. But if I had to point to a few that I really learned a lot from, one would be Danielle Vincent, the founder of Outlaw Soaps, who I think was interesting for me in particular, just because, as Jason mentioned earlier, when I was younger, I started a business when I was 7 selling homemade hand soaps. So to interview a fellow soap maker was very interesting. And that was the experience of talking with her about her experience and having some of the same struggles that I did was with regards to scaling and with regards to how to sell something like soap in general, how to differentiate your product from all the different options that are out there was one interview that I found really inspiring as well. I also would mention the sorry, it's so hard to choose. I'm just trying to pick out who of, like I said, 51 amazing people and choosing a single one. But we interviewed the founder of Jenny's Ice Cream, Jenny Bauer, who again, this is the one where I'm biased in this regard because it's my favorite ice cream company. But as with Mei, Jenny also had some pretty close experiences with failure. At one point, her business nearly went bankrupt during some challenging periods, and I think that it was another inspirational story of how you can take something as seemingly difficult to make a profit off of as ice cream, something which seems like it's very difficult. Like, how do you compete with something like Baskin Robbins or Ben and Jerry? And the fact that she's made a name for herself and for Jenny's Ice Cream, to the extent that you have people who swear by it as their favorite ice cream, like me. And I think that is another one was really inspirational to me.
Wow. I think, guys, if I had to make a prediction as to which one of you is going to run for political office first, I'm going to go with Finley because he didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So I appreciate that. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Jason, one of the things that I found interesting is that the first 3 CEOs that we're talking about here out of the 51 that you mentioned that were, especially inspirational to you both were women. Did that surprise you that you found so much inspiration from female entrepreneurs and CEOs?
Not at all. I would say, of course, first of all, they make up 50% of our population. Mm-hmm. So it's absolutely, and we also interviewed a bunch of venture capitalists, especially those who highlighted their kind of focusing on helping and backing women and especially women and minority-owned businesses, mm-hmm. right? And their entry into this field has only brought success, only brought kind of more positivity and better kind of products. And I don't think we should overlook them at all in terms of anything that they've accomplished. And I really believe in kind of the diversity of our interviewees and, of course, hopefully bringing more of that diversity to the overall workspace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. It's, I think it is important, and it's great to see that there are so many women and people of color who are succeeding. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead, Finley.
So, the other thing I was just going to mention is that I know what you said about politics was actually slightly surprising to me, because if anything, I'm the more creative one of the two. I would have suspected Jason would be the one more likely to go into politics. But no, I also wanted to mention that I think that another commonality I just noticed between the 3 that we mentioned is that they all made sort of like creative products and like things that like are consumable, and like a candle or a soap or a ice cream mm-hmm. flavor as well. And I think that also goes to show how if anything, I think that creating something from scratch is somehow I don't know. I want to say I am not going to say it's more meaningful because I'm like the very definition of bias on this one, but, I think that I think that that's another thing where I think it's really interesting how, from a financial perspective as well, how sometimes products like that are harder to scale up in terms of a business. Like, how can you, the industries feel very settled and dominated already, and it feels difficult to make your mark. So I wonder if that could contribute to how we found them to be so inspirational, because really it's such a difficult market to get into as well.
Interesting. I think for me, at least when I was younger and I heard the word entrepreneur, I didn't hear it that often because I grew up in the inner city and with a middle class blue collar family. So there weren't any business people in my family. But when I would hear the word entrepreneur and start your own business, I would always think that in order to be successful, you have to be a multi-gazillionaire. Did you find and have a chance to speak to CEOs who were started small companies that have remained small, but just big enough to make the CEO happy with what they were with what they had created?
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
Okay. So, yes, I think that we did interview people that we interviewed businesses of all sizes, and not just, run by people of all ages, run by people of all different backgrounds. We did not, we interviewed people who didn't even go to college. We interviewed others who had extensive educations from prestigious Ivy Leagues. We interviewed people who were baby boomers. We interviewed people who were even younger than us, even. And I think that that diversity also extends to the size of the businesses. That we interviewed huge companies, we interviewed small local organizations as well. And I think that in that we showed that really at the end of the day, it's not about, at least to us, it's not about making the money. It's about learning the skills of entrepreneurship and making a difference through business. That I think that entrepreneurship is so valuable in life, no matter what you do with it. And also that entrepreneurship is really a way to make change in the world, whether that be impacting your local community or impacting the entire world. And I think no matter the size of the company, that it's not how much you're taking home as a paycheck at the end of the day. It's, are you making a difference? Are you happy? Or have you made a company that you're proud of, and have you learned something in the process?
Wow. Well said. Well said. Hey, I'm just assuming that both of you had families that were supportive of your entrepreneurial endeavors. So I guess what I'd love to ask you, we'll start with you first, Jason. If there's a parent out there, because that's who mostly listens to the show, are parents, what advice would you give them if they want to support and encourage their kids to become entrepreneurs?
The first thing I would say is finding something that they're interested in. I think letting them experiment. As a kid, I was involved in so many different sports, from hockey to tennis to golf. But at the same time, I was doing things on the side, like, collecting Pokemon cards, or, selling old toys at yard sales, right? And I think it's through these little things where I eventually found, my passions and what I wanted to maybe start a business out of, right? And it maybe isn't super related to exactly the sports or anything else that I did, but being able to try things out made me more open to say, hey, why don't I try this out, but make some money out of it, right? As like a business owner or small business owner. And whether that's slime or even coding websites, it's, you just have to be kind of supportive of your child in that manner.
Yeah. And what about you, Finley? Any words of wisdom for parents and grandparents and other caregivers out there?
Yes. So another thing I would note is that I feel like entrepreneurship as a career path can often feel very intimidating, I think, as far as it can seem like, how do you become an entrepreneur? Isn't that super difficult? Can't only the best people make it? And I think that it's very easy to be overwhelmed by the idea of starting a business. And I think that one thing I would encourage people to do is to whether it be to kids or to for parents to encourage their kids to do so, is to develop grit and persistence and to never give up, and also to break it up into smaller chunks, and also prioritize mental health, and really to not to value the process, and not try to speed through it, because really you can't build a business in a day. And also I would mention that even if someone, as Jason mentioned, the value of experimentation in terms of to find what you're interested in, even if someone, a child, finds that they don't want to be an entrepreneur, that even if they go into a completely different path, that oftentimes the skills that can be learned in entrepreneurship, I think, are applicable to every field and every walk of life. That, for instance, my plan is to make writing my career. I like to say that my newest product is words. So I plan on continuing to write books in the future, and maybe that's not the same as starting a business, but I found that some of the things that I learned in the process of writing this book were the very same things I was doing in the process of writing, that that grit and resilience were just as applicable to writing a book as they were to starting a business, that negotiation of funding from a venture capitalist mirrored the process of negotiating for a book contract. And I think that that's just as true for so many other careers as well. I know I mentioned earlier that an entrepreneurial mindset is the number one thing that employers look for in their employees. And I think that really goes to show that no matter what you do with it, learning about entrepreneurship is really, I already mentioned this earlier, but I think it's fundamental to a child's education. And so you should, whether it be inside of school or out, you should support your child's dreams and help them explore entrepreneurship.
Well said. And it's interesting that you mentioned your goal of becoming a writer and how it has parallels to business. We are very proud that we've given voice and a platform to so many independent and self-published authors here on the podcast. Some of them that are, writing their first book, and others who have become very successful and have sold upwards of 600,000 plus self-published books. The one thing we always mention to them is that if you are planning to write a book, understand that the moment you set out to write a children's book or any book, you're setting out and you're actually starting a small business, because in addition to putting the words together, you're going to have to put on that marketing cap and that negotiation cap and that CEO. So I'm very, very happy that you mentioned that, and I wish you lots of luck in your goal. Jason, what's up for you? Are we going to start the next Google or Microsoft or?
Yes, my passion is a lot kind of deeply rooted in coding and, of course, like computer science. I'm studying that in high school right now in the STEM program at my high school. But, of course, I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing where this book takes us and, of course, finding ways to kind of meld the tech side with some of the things that I can do with business. And I hope that in college and things like that, I'll be able to, I guess, dive into those experiences, and maybe I'll even start my own business, but we'll have to see. Currently, I've been doing a lot of that since middle school, actually, just helping local chamber of commerces even. So it's been a long journey, I think, of like kind of working with people older than me. And I think this goes to the same for Finn, right? We've pitched people older than us. We've spoken to people older than us. And that's why it's kind of natural to try new things and not be afraid to really venture out of our comfort zones.
Well, good for you. You'd be hard pressed to find a venture capitalist that's younger than you, I think. So,
That's true.
hey, we need to know where we can go to find out more about Down to Business and find out more about both of you. Finley, where can we find the book?
Of course. So the book is currently sold on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, in stores at Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, Books A Million, and in small local bookstores, really anywhere books are sold. And you can also, for more information, follow us on our socials on LinkedIn or Instagram at Down to Business Book, or at our website, which is down2biz.net. And we are posting blogs currently with even more interviews, and we have more information about our journey there. So there's really so many different places that you can find out more about about Down to Business.
We've had a really fascinating time speaking to the authors of Down to Business. Our guests have been Finley Scurlock and Jason Liaw. My friends, I had a blast. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Before we invite our guests into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from the beautiful Sunshine State of Florida. Our guest is here today to celebrate two beautiful picture books, The Ramadan Drummer and Eid Moon. Please welcome to the show, Satane Abaza. Satane, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm so excited to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you on as well. Tell us about The Ramadan Drummer, please.
So the Ramadan Drummer, it introduces an old Muslim tradition. Long before the alarm clocks were invented, there were drummers that used to stroll the streets during the month of Ramadan before sunrise and wake people up for their last meal before fast. And so Adam, the protagonist of the story, he hears his family reminisce about the drummers who used to wake them up. Whether in a dream or reality, Adam wakes up that night to the sound of a beating drum. He sneaks out of his house, follows the sound up and down the winding alleys until he meets the Ramadan drummer. And together they walk alongside each other, beating the drum until all the homes are lit. But as people wake up, they hear whispers coming from the homes they pass by. Some of those whispers, they carry happy news, and some carry sad news. And that's when the drummer tells Adam that during Ramadan, every act of kindness is rewarded tenfold.
What a beautiful story.
Yep.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, tell us a little bit about Ramadan, please.
So Muslims, they celebrate Ramadan. It's a month of basically fast where they don't eat or drink as long as the sun is up. But they're also fast from doing any bad behavior as well. So they're not supposed to engage in any sins like cheating, lying, gossiping. And Muslims also believe that during this month, the gates to heaven are open and every act of kindness is rewarded tenfold. So it's a time of self-reflection and also a time of thinking of others.
Yeah. And I like that. In my faith tradition, Catholic, we have the season of Lent that we're just about finished with, is a season where we're supposed to fast from something, give up something. And it never made sense to me that, if I give up chocolate, that means I'm a great Catholic for these 40 days. And then as I got older and as I matured in my faith and in my knowledge of my faith, I realized that second part that you mentioned, that the fasting is an important act, but also fasting from bad behavior or going out and intentionally doing good things. That's a much more, at least in my mind, it's a much more important activity or tradition, because it reminds us to act in the way that our God wants us to. And one of the things that I love reminding folks is that you and I believe in the same God.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I believe that too. And I think this is not a lot of people know that side of Ramadan, and that's why I wanted to highlight it in the book. In countries that are predominantly Muslim during this month, there tends to be a great sense of community as well. And so people will open their homes to family, friends, and even strangers to share their food and break their fast together. Mosques and neighborhood will host what is known as mercy tables with free food for anyone to eat. People will donate money to sponsor a meal for someone in need. So there's a lot of also a sense of community during this month, which I wanted to also highlight.
Yeah. I love that the Ramadan drummer is available for families. We talk about books having the ability to be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And I know that kids and families that practice Islam, it's beautiful to be able to see themselves and their traditions and stories being shared and portrayed positively in a beautiful picture book like this. I think it's equally important and valuable for families, whether they're Christian or Jewish or Sikh or have no faith tradition at all, to be able to look and to see what Ramadan is, what traditions Muslim families hold dear to their hearts. I think it helps us grow closer together.
Absolutely. It's, as you said, it offers a window. Diverse books offer a window into someone else's life and experience. And it's very important, especially in this increasingly diverse world that we live in. If we want our children to thrive, truly, then we need to expose them to diversity at a very young age. And we need to, teach them how to respect people of all, different backgrounds and faiths. Yeah. And equally important, it's also important for diverse kids to see themselves in the books that they read, and to see a wide array of books as well. Books that talk about ordinary and extraordinary events, books that are fun and lighthearted, not only books that talk about struggles and hardships.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the Eid moon is also related to Ramadan. Am I right?
Yes, so Eid is celebrated twice a year, actually. There's Eid is celebrated one at the end of Ramadan, and there's also another Eid, Eid al-Adha, which is celebrated also during the year. Looking for the Eid moon, it introduces the tradition of sighting the crescent moon, because Muslims, they follow a lunar calendar. They rely on the shape of the moon to mark important holidays and dates. And in this story, Eid will not start until the crescent moon is spotted.
Yeah, and help me understand, the Eid celebration is a big feast. Am I right about that?
So it's a 3-day holiday that is celebrated, with families and loved ones, and like all holidays, really, at the core, they're much more alike than different. We all celebrate them by being gathered around families and loved ones. We wear our best clothes, we exchange gifts, and we just want to create fun and memorable memories with our loved ones.
And in Eid moon, who are we going to be meeting?
So Sarah and her younger sister, Lulu, they're excited about the Eid holidays. And so they pack a pair of binoculars, a blanket, and a flashlight into their backpack, and they go on this little quest to find the moon. But as the night grows dark, they learn that they need to be patient, that they need to show courage. And unfortunately, they still are unable to spot it. And that's because the crescent moon is very faint and it's hard to see. There are actually moon sighting committees that are responsible for this task. Regardless, Sarah is determined that she's going to cheer her little sister up. And it's a story that highlights the special bond of sisterhood and how holidays that are spent with family are always filled with magic.
Yeah. Lovely story. I really like that. Was there a particular inspiration that drove you to write these books?
So I never imagined I would be a children's book author. I actually worked with software most of my career. And it wasn't until I moved to the States 15 years ago and became a mom of 2 little girls that I admired how fun and whimsical the holidays were here. And unfortunately, I couldn't find a fun and engaging tale to read to my girls about any of the Muslim holidays that we celebrate. There are few books that have Muslim characters, and they tend to depict a character that is struggling to fit in. And so I want them to see themselves in fun and lighthearted stories as well. I think this is very important. And that was my motivation to write the books.
Yeah. Why do you think that most of the books that feature Muslim characters are facing those struggles?
I think anything different. We tend to fear anything that's different. And not having a lot of diverse books also adds to the mix. I think the more we read diverse books, the more we realize that we are much more alike than different, and read a wide range and wide array of diverse books. Reading a single narrative is, does not give us the full spectrum. By reading books, we're able to see that, at the core of things, we are very much alike.
Yeah. What is it, the 1 or 2 things that you would most want people who are listening to the show and don't know a lot about Islam and don't have contact with many Muslim coworkers or neighbors, what are a couple of things that you want those folks to know about you and your culture?
I think, especially on the holidays, I think it's a great opportunity to connect with Muslim friends or Muslim neighbors that you don't usually connect with. Approaching them and asking questions like, how are you preparing for Ramadan, or how are you celebrating the Eid holiday? I think it will be greatly appreciated, especially if your neighbors don't have family that are close by. I think as humans, we are more open when we are enjoying a happy occasion, whether it is a holiday or a wedding or a graduation. So it's a great opportunity to build bridges and to connect and to build this stronger sense of community.
Yeah. I love that idea of building bridges to connect us. That's one of the most important things I hope that parents are sharing with our kids as we're reading, using books to be a window to look into other people's cultures and traditions, is that we celebrate that diversity, but also remind our kids that we are all part of one beautiful human family.
Absolutely. And what better way to embrace and teach diversity than to learn about all the different holidays that people around the world celebrate? I think that's a great way to introduce diversity to kids of a young age as well.
Yeah. Now, so I'm going to ask you a question. I hope it doesn't seem flippant, but we hear a lot about cultural appropriation and how we shouldn't be appropriating other people's culture. I tend to think if I'm cooking food from another culture, it's more of appreciation. So what you're saying is, going out, especially in Ramadan, if we're looking to maybe enjoy an Eid feast with one of our neighbors. We're not appropriating anything. We're appreciating and coming together.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I expressed interest to my colleague a few years ago about Holi, the Indian holiday that she celebrates. And Holi was actually yesterday. So she invited me to one of their local celebrations, and it was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. I even hope to take my kids to a Holi celebration someday. It's just everybody's so welcoming and so friendly, and it's a great time to connect again when people are, and celebrating a happy occasion. So that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and just think, if you have fun at Christmas or the 4th of July, if you can find a great holiday every single month to party, that's a great thing to do with your kids.
Yes, we need more happy occasions to celebrate, especially in this time that we live in.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So what's next for you? Do you have, I know authors are loath sometimes to talk about future projects, but are you working on some future projects, or are there other customs or traditions or ideas that you want to share in a children's book?
I am working on a few other projects that I'm very excited about. They are still work in progress, but they're definitely not related to a religious holiday or theme.
Yeah. And what do your kids think about the books?
They're super excited. Actually, the publisher of Looking for the Moon, they wanted the characters to look like my daughters, and so they're so excited to share the book with their friends and tell them they're actually the characters of the book.
Oh, that's beautiful. Hey, where can we go to find out more about these two beautiful books and also find out more about you?
So my website is abazabooks.com. My social media handle is also Abaza Books. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can get the books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble online, Books A Million online, Target, Walmart online, or you could buy them from the publisher directly, Raycraft or Sleeping Bear Press.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Ramadan Drummer and Eid Moon. Our guest has been Sataneh Abaza. My friend, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful being on your show.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. And we hope you will check out our STEM is Family Fun video series. Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? STEM is Family Fun will do it for you. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw. There's something for everybody in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and the laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Once again, you can find those videos at our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and also at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And if you're at our website, please be sure to download our free online Reading with Your Kids magazine. And authors, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button up at the top of the page. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guests and our sponsors. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Skylar Strauss, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kaylin Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Hannah Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. And most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.